Changing your life shouldn't be a chore. You might be struggling at the moment, don't really know what to do, consuming a lot of motivational content online, and ultimately all that's actually doing is adding a dopamine hit to you on a daily basis. Now, in order to be able to change, there's got to be a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. So the information you're consuming needs to actually add value to you on a daily basis. So this is like when people read books and they say they read 20 books, but it's like, one, did you actually need to read that book? Two, did you actually implement anything that you learned from that book on a daily basis? Now, this is where I went wrong. I consumed so much, but didn't actually implement anything. So I wasn't actually threading the needle and moving myself closer to the goal because I was just consuming so much noise that I wasn't actually using. This is why it's important to actually identify what it is that you're struggling with. So I had a client the other day was struggling with money. That was the main focus, is his psychology around money, right? But he was reading a book, I think it was the 5 a.m. Club. So I was like, well, why are you reading that when you've been waking up at 5 a.m. working with me for the last 2 years? So he was like, well, I don't know, it was just a personal development book, wasn't it? I just thought it would add value. But ultimately, he'd already been doing what he'd solved. So we then gave him the psychology of money in order to be able to read, learn, and implement on a daily basis what you actually needed to be able to implement. And this is where people go wrong, is they consume so much, but ultimately you really need to simplify that brain that is always so overwhelmed, because it doesn't make sense to overwhelm the brain when the whole point of self-development is actually to make your life more simple and happier. So if this is you right now, I really want you to just get a pen and paper out and just, what is the biggest struggle? Just write down one thing that is the biggest struggle right now. So if you're overthinking, if you're worrying, you need to start learning about your thoughts. So you would then turn to a book like The Power of Now. If you're a control freak and you're constantly stressed and you're constantly worried, another great book would actually be The Surrender Experiment. All right. If you want to create a new identity and understand things like pendulums that start bringing you back into your old self, you would then read a book called Reality Transurfing. All right. Now, the whole point of self-development is actually to wake up and start enjoying life. And you start to enjoy life because you start to progress. We are at our happiest when we're progressing. Okay. This is why whenever I go to gym sessions, my weights are constantly going up, maybe 1.25 kilograms, maybe 2.5 kilograms. I'm always happy because I know that I have beaten the old version of myself. And whenever you start to get a little bit of momentum in life and you start to build a bit of consistency, there's just this annoying, it's like you're an annoying mate that plants a thought in your head, that starts doubting, that then gets you to turn to a negative vice. And then before you know it, you just feel like you end up back at square one. Okay? You never actually end up back at square one. All right? You always just end up getting a little bit more wiser, a little bit more frustrated with yourself. And sometimes that's the petrol that you actually need in order to be able to make the moves in life. And again, threading the needle and moving yourself closer to the outcome that you actually want. So you should get excited now, because you don't have to go and learn 2, 3, 4 new things a day in order to be able to implement it into your life. All right, you just find the one thing that is currently driving you insane, all right, and then you focus on that on a daily basis, and then you make sure that your to-do list has something that actually relates to that. Because ultimately, this is the biggest mistake that I made. I started learning from so many different people. I started to try so many different things that actually lost sight of what it is that I actually needed to do to be happier. And I ended up making myself more miserable because I never felt like I was achieving anything, and I was actually stuck in the same place, and it was deliberating. Nothing ever happened, nothing ever changed, and all that happened was the self-hatred, the doubt, the fear, the insecurity, the worry. I felt stupid. Stupid was already something that I struggled with, because that's what I got called at school, because I wasn't smart when it came to maths or science or anything like that. So then that triggered old parts of me, and I ended up in more of a mess than I actually needed to. And I wish someone sat me down and said, what is it you're currently struggling with at the moment? This is the problem. Here's the solution. If you read that and implement it on a daily basis, you will get the outcome that you want. When you want to drive a car, you go to a driving instructor to solve that specific problem. If your car had a flat tire, you wouldn't go to the garage and then start getting the engine fixed, would you? All right? Identify the key problem, find the solution, and then the solution on a daily basis then becomes the stuff that you work on, and you will start to see your life change dramatically. I promise you that. If you're someone that's currently struggling with this at the moment, feel free to hit the link, book in a call and work with me one-on-one. I currently fly around the world working with incredible people. I've worked with some of your famous music artists that you probably listen to, DJs, CEOs from all over the world, and general normal people. And the reason why I say that is because every single person, no matter what level they're currently at in life, struggle. So you are not alone. You are not the one that needs to stay where you need to stay for a day longer than you need to. Big love, Millennium Movement, baby.